All right, good morning. Welcome to the Neary Building Committee Communications Subcommittee meeting. It is January 31st, 2025. It is 9:01 a.m. All voting members are present. We are going to skip meeting minutes for today and deal with those next time. Um, the next item on the agenda is debrief of feedback received to date. So I think as we've been highlighting in some of the sessions, there's been some open forums to various groups around town, and I thought it's important for this uh, committee to hear what we've heard and seen, not necessarily, but and also use that to help us think about what any next steps should be in terms of communication with the community. So I figured I would just summarize that for everyone if you want to bear with me for a minute or two, and then we can discuss any of it if you'd like. So the first was the kinder group. Uh, there were two sessions held to educate the members there. Some people joined both as well. In total, it was about 40 individual participants over the two sessions. The main items that came out of that session were wanting additional details around the educational benefits of the project and making sure that those were well articulated because the general premise from that group was that there was a ton of discussion about cost in general about this project, and they felt like some of that was missing at certain points in time. There was a discussion around the transition plan and some questions there that were referred to Keith around how that would work, where the students would be, and making sure that the students, were not going to be necessarily sitting in the same spot all day if the specialists were on carts or other things. So that was just one item that was passed along. Um, there was a lot of questions around how the schools would be structured in terms of staffing, number of specialists per area. That was passed along to Greg to think about a response there, given that falls within the administration's purview. Uh, and then there was just some general commentary around all the items that the town is thinking about and how that would be packaged, for transparency purposes as well. But I would say the largest point of discussion was around the education and making sure um, that was very clear to the community. So I'll pause there on that particular piece. Any questions?
I don't really have any at this point. Denise, is there something going on with your video?
No, she was in the car, so
Oh,
you may
okay,
just want
okay.
to turn
All
your
right.
video off. All right, I'll keep going. Um, Next was open office hours. So we had our first open office hour a few weeks ago. It was Friday. It was a Friday during the day around this time period. There were four total participants. Each of them kind of identified themselves as members of the senior community. There was a few others that kind of came in and out, but there's four uh, individuals that really participated and had dialogue for the full hour and came with a variety of different topics. One was on just the communication of the open office hours. They thought it wasn't well advertised. To kind of go back, it was posted on Facebook. It was published on the blog. Printouts were distributed in a few spots. And what I was able to narrow down as the root cause was just it seemed like that the town side blasted an email out later in the week versus it was posted on their website earlier in the week. And obviously, that was the tightest turnaround we had in terms of scheduling and quote unquote posting. It's obviously not open public meeting, but it was posted about a week in advance. So, for further action items, we're just going to continue to make sure that those flyers get posted as soon as possible. So for the next three, we've posted them all together. So some people have up to a month's notice. The next one is tomorrow. Roger's out of hand.
Yeah, it is. So, I know there's that newsletter that Pam puts out to all the seniors. The problem is, takes so much lead time to actually get content into that newsletter that I'm not sure it would be current, as far as office hours, because I think we probably have some, I think we're probably adding office hours at potentially at different times, right? And I'm not even sure when the next newsletter is going out. I think it's a 2 month newsletter. They send it out for 2 months at a time, and um, so that might not help.
I think we're too fluid at this point. I think the best idea I was able to think of and welcome feedback is just presenting giving Pam a copy of the poster and letting her post it in whatever areas she's comfortable with within the senior center.
I think that's a good, I do
And
think that's a good idea.
and then it was very clear to me that everyone had learned about the event from Facebook. So even social media certainly continues to be helpful in that respect. The next item that once we got over the communication discussion, we went into a few different topics. Uh, Continued significant concern over the cost and why we chose the most expensive option. So what we ended up doing is we went back through each of those other options and tried to articulate that yes, while it may have been the largest number on the piece of paper, there were a variety of options and why they didn't make financial sense in terms of cost per square foot and all the discussion that we had had at that August meeting. And I also caution that we obviously have a much more refined estimate coming that I have no idea what it's going to say. It could be better, it could be worse, and obviously the committee will have to, the broader committee will have to take a more holistic view and be able to articulate why it continues to be the best path forward as we go. So that was one item. The next item was concerns about the proximity to the landfill. A lot of concern about why we didn't just look at Finn, didn't buy into the reasons why we did not look at Finn, and did not think in particular, if you remember, there was some legal concern about the ability to expand Finn because of the park next to it in terms of what restrictions are actually on that parcel. They didn't buy into the legal premise behind it. So I don't know that we got anywhere there other than just providing our side of it. Uh, there was, as part of that, there was some mention of like how you're taking a school out of the south side, but that conversation did not go much further. Um, there was a request from the Southborough Public Accessibility Committee to be part of a review of the uh, design once, and it was agreed to, that that could be after the project is funded.
Which,
But just
which committee again? The disability?
the yeah, Public Accessibility Committee.
Okay.
And they just thought that even though we say we're building to code, and Katie was actually in the room for a part of it because she had a meeting in Southborough right after, so she was able to address the standards that, from a design perspective, that they live up to. But I think there was an additional request, and no one, I committed that, if this project is successful and moving forward, that there could be an option there for someone to look at it and be involved and make sure that we're thinking about the right things. Their concern was not about like the bigger picture items in terms of doorway width. They realized that that stuff would work, but it was more about like door handles or even accessory items that are placed in a building after it's built that impact, like it might have been accessible to start and then all of a sudden it's not because someone mounts something on a wall was like a few of the examples that were given. Um, there was a lot of discussion around, and Roger, this will be for you. A lot of discussion about the inefficient use of our school buses in town and how they were frustrated with the how empty they are and the line of traffic getting into schools in particular days. Woodward was cited as the natural example, but there was some acknowledgement around Finn too in terms of how the traffic backs up and what this would mean in terms of. But again, that's more of a school committee question, not necessarily related to the project, but we did try to tie in response. And Kathy Cook was with me, by the way, from a committee representation perspective. We did try to tie in that one of the expected benefits that we foresee with the project is consolidated busing, right? So that if, the district is able to make commitments to families about how long their students will be on buses, that you will likely see a change in, hopefully a change in the behaviors that are exhibited in terms of driving versus busing. So just something to monitor, I think, as we go forward. Tangential to that, but I think incredibly important, was also there was a question of whether we've done any traffic studies yet, which we haven't, and the potential impact of additional vehicular traffic going through that residential neighborhood, in particular Parkerville, but to some extent Clifford and Deerfoot were also referenced. I think that is a valid question that we need to make sure that we have studied and considered, and that's because of the two additional grades that would be going there, was the main item of concern there. Uh, Last item was mainly around um, why school age parents are not at these meetings. So I don't know how to answer that question. I can't force people to come to meetings, but that was also a general sentiment. I do acknowledge it was also during the day, right? We've tried to scatter our office hours over a period of time. So, we will see if there's a change in desire or appetite as we move forward. Go ahead, Roger. Though that's all I got. So, welcome questions or commentary on that.
Yeah, I wanted to wait until you got to the last one to make this comment. So it may be hard to, or I'm trying to make a general question out of this, which is probably impossible to answer. Um, did you generally find that your responses, and I know there were different kinds of questions, okay, about different topics, were viewed as resulted in the people that were listening to the answers feeling that, oh, all right, well, that's a fact that is very useful for us to understand. Or, well, I guess we just have a difference of opinion on that.
I would characterize more of the latter at this point.
All right, because I know you specifically identified that, at least on one of the items. Okay. And I wonder if there's, if that's an issue with the audience in some situations, or what, or do people to some degree have their mind made up, and they want to see how the question is going to be answered, but it doesn't necessarily change their mind. And if you agree that that happens to be true, is there any way to manage that? I don't know if there is.
Yeah, I mean, I differentiate um, cost from everything else, in terms of these. The cost largely outside of our control unless we pull back part of the scale of the project, right? And again, we'll be able to have an educated discussion on this in 1 to 2 weeks, right? Like it's not like we're thinking 1 to 2 months out. All the other stuff, I think, is stuff that should and could evolve as we head towards town meeting in terms of what the options are and aren't, right? And uh, I think there's a desire to put other options on the table that just if we would like to seek MSBA funding, that's just not going to be the path forward at this point in time based on the decisions that have already been made in the public meetings. So I think it's something we should monitor though, Roger, right? Because you could certainly have a very different audience at another meeting, which we've had, right? Where the tone and general direction is the complete opposite. So I think you need to measure that, right? And again, just answer with facts, right? Is the best you can do, right? In these instances.
Well, I
Yeah, and I
understand.
agree. Can you
Sorry,
hear me,
Denise.
Jason? Oh,
Okay.
that's right. And I agree. And I think one of the best things that came out of that is the traffic, the increased traffic going into that, into the location, because now you've got two more classes going in there. I think that's a
Yeah.
really valid point that came up. And the other thing is, I agree with Roger and you about the fact that the audience is going to tailor the questions and the answers. Because if you're talking to the kinder care, obviously their issue is education, how the kids are going to be transported, how they're going to act within the environment for the 2 years we're building. Whereas if you're talking to seniors, they're more focused on what their tax increase is going to be.
Right.
And I don't think we can get away from that. It depends on who shows up to these meetings. Again, their questions are going to be tailored around.
We're losing you, Denise. I know you might be in the car, but we lost your connection.
No, sorry. Can you hear me now?
We can.
So I just think that we're not going to be able to avoid that. The questions are going to be tailored to the specific needs, and I don't think there's any way around that. Other than when you had those specific meetings with, those coffees with the elementary parents, that's a different story. But the open office hours are going to be tailored around specific questions and needs of the audience.
Right. Okay. Kathleen,
Thank you. Can you hear me?
we can.
Yes.
In terms of communication at the elementary level, Steve Clayton and I got together the other day. We've identified 3 meetings. We're going to do principals' coffees in February, March, and April. We're meeting with Greg on Tuesday to outline what those meetings will look like. So hopefully we'll be attracting parents from those 3 schools.
Yeah. And I know Greg and I have had some conversations too. I know he's not able to join today. Just about how we can communicate, and as we get closer to votes, like what the rules are and aren't of who can communicate, who can host, etc. And we are going to continue to seek guidance from the state to make sure that we stay kind of within each of our swim lanes. So we will be kind of coordinating around those aspects as well, just so everyone's aware.
Okay, thank you.
All right. All right. Anything else on the feedback? All right. On the website, I've started a process to work to get it not redesigned, but to get some of the headers be more prominent. One of the things I was noting, um, and maybe this is a false expectation or not, is most people probably are joining our website from their phone at first, not necessarily from a computer. um, and making sure that the headers at the top are very prominent to each of the areas we want someone to focus on. Right now, the content is kind of buried down at the bottom of the website. So we are working to kind of make some changes there so that depending on whether someone's interested in the cost, they can go to one page. If someone's interested in how we got to this point, someone's interested in the options that were looked at one point in time, really kind of having that actioned at the top so that someone's not searching for data. Because I would tell you that almost every single request that I've gotten offline, the data was on our website, but I do not know how that person would have, like when they reached out, would have actually noticed it or found it based on our current setup. So just wanted everyone to be aware of that. Any questions on that?
No, I'm looking at it again now. I mean, I see what you mean.
Yeah, like if you just had everything up the top there, Roger, where it says like home or about, and not
Right.
even with the drop downs.
About events, documents, the team, right?
Yeah. So like the simplest example I can give is like the FAQs are buried in one of those menu drop downs.
And
We're
that,
gonna pull that out.
yeah, I did notice that before that, but I'm not a web designer, that it would be nice to get to have a little more direct access to the FAQs, because then you're dealing with hopefully a good percentage of the questions that they have.
Yeah. Okay. Anyone else on the website? In terms of communication plan update, so we have the open office hours. Those have been posted through the beginning of March. The intent is to think of other forums that we can host if people want information, various user groups, etc. And then I think the other important thing to think about is the communication around the cost of the project. So I expect that when we meet about 10 days from now, we're going to hear the initial, the updated cost, right? And have a view, right? Either it went up, it's the same, or it went down. I think there are 3 different action plans that go into action after that, depending upon what the answer is, and candidly what the committee's pulse and temperature is of those revised amounts. So what I wanted to do with our communication plan is be ready for that, and figure out the right way to advertise the meeting, right? So that people feel in the public feel like they have the proper input, but also um, have a discussion around, like, it leads right into February vacation, which like we'll be making again, we don't make these deadlines, but making sure that we're getting the message out to those that may not be impacted by the vacation, but also making sure that whatever the messaging is, that we continue to make sure people are aware if they've kind of taken a week off from focusing on emails or social media or websites or what have you. So I think this in particular, Roger, relates to you. I know you were waiting on like when you're gonna go next, have your next information session at the senior center. Um, but I would think that you are safe to calendar that, realizing that calendars, you don't get on instantaneously anytime after February 14th. And
Fair
you're
enough.
probably going to think about multiple sessions. I would say if the
Well,
news gets,
I
go
know
ahead,
that I know that Mark wanted to join me.
Mark Purple
Mark,
or Davis.
Davis.
Okay, great.
Um, and I'm thinking that, I'm always back to thinking about, do I have to post a meeting? Okay. So, but we're really not there for that reason, right? We're not there for sustainability, but, I
Yeah.
could post it anyway, I guess. I don't know. You think, got a, got a point of view on that? You just think,
I don't know how much lead time do you typically need to get something scheduled there?
well, it depends on how Pam schedules it. She likes to do it in that newsletter, but it's too late
Yeah.
to get it into a newsletter to uh to get like something, in the next couple weeks. But I'll ask Pam. I'll ask Pam what, that I'd like to get on the schedule. I'm gonna need to do it, we're gonna need to do it sooner than the newsletter would enable us to do it. The seniors were very interested in us doing it again. So let me get a read on that from her. I don't know the answer to that. And I have a follow on about FAQs when we move on to a different subject.
We can, I mean, I would just get the lead time and know that you can schedule it anytime after the 14th.
All right, I'll do it.
Um, what's
So
your question on FAQs?
here's, and maybe you said this and I missed it, but again on on the website, um, I I think I just think I think the FAQs are really important. I think if people see it, they'll hit it. And I just wonder if we could put, I mean, right now it's under the about. I mean, it's the number one thing below the about. I just wonder if it, how difficult it would be to put a separate drop down up there and just say FAQs, drop down into it. Because some people are going to look for it in documents. I don't know. I mean, it's just,
Yeah, no, that's exactly what we're doing. So it's beyond my technical capabilities, but I've asked the design team to figure out how to make that happen.
okay, well, that's, all right. That's great.
Um, Anything else on communication plan or things that we should be thinking about or doing? I have asked the finance subcommittee to be thinking about the same. I think we can certainly help on level of communication, but we're certainly going to need their input. As conversation at least goes around cost. But obviously there are other things, as you've heard from some of the feedback earlier, that we need to make sure we are articulating as well. We have no new FAQs today, so we can skip that part of the agenda. I do expect that based on the last open office hours plus anything we get tomorrow, that we'll be able to then take that into a few new ones or reorder some of them. Okay, with that being said, is there any public comment? I'm seeing none. In terms of meeting schedules, we're on the calendar for 2 weeks from today at 9 a.m. again, and we'll keep the cadence going as long as we think it's needed.
Thank you, Jason.
All right, I'll make a motion to
Thanks.
adjourn.
Second,
Second,
All right, motion has been made and seconded. Roll call vote, Denise,
aye.
Roger,
bye.
and I am I as well. Have a great day and weekend.
Have a good weekend, folks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.